You're right, you can't see anything from up here. I have my duck. You've heard a couple of people talk this evening about what Balticon means to them and how many Balticons they've been to. And it's traditional at times like this, actually, to, when you meet a new person at a convention, to say, so, is this your first Balticon? Or what was your first con? And I grew up in Baltimore, so Balticon was for many years my first convention, my home convention. My first convention was Balticon 10 in 1976. At that point in my life, I had no idea that there were science fiction conventions. I had no idea that there were science fiction fans. What I wanted to do was I wanted to be a writer. And so I entered a short story contest, and I won. My prize was membership to Balticon 10. 25 bucks in cash, which I immediately blew on books in the dealership. An introduction to that year's writer guest of honor, who was Isaac Asimov. And an introduction to the jury, the short story jury. Among them was a writer named Steve Miller, who at that time was running the art show. So we talked for like 2.5 seconds. About a year later, I met Steve Miller again. We were, by chance, taking the same college writing course because we wanted easy credits. And after class, we got to talking. And then we moved in with each other. And then we started to write together, as you do. And Steve was a fan. He had been not only a writer, but a performance poet. The club MOP for BISCUS, MOP being the Ministry of Propaganda. He had been vice chair of the Baltimore 80 Worldcon bid, and he had been the founding curator of the science fiction collection, science fiction research collection at the University of Maryland in Baltimore County. And he had read, by the time I met him, a lot of science fiction. I had read some science fiction. I read everything. But I read a book by a guy named Heinlein, titled Citizen of the Galaxy, which I did not. So it was with some surprise, as Steve and I were shelving our books together in our apartment, to see quite so many titles by this Heinlein guy in Steve's many boxes of books. And we had a lot of duplicates as we were shelving, but the only duplicate Heinlein book we had, and in fact the only Heinlein book in my many boxes of books, was Stranger in a Strange Land. And I looked at Steve, and I looked at all these books, and I said, so this Heinlein guy, is he any good? And Steve kind of looked at me, you know the librarian desk stare where you're trying to decide what you can take? And then he reached into one of his boxes, and he pulled out some books, and he started to make a pile by my knee. The Moon's the Harsh Mistress, The Rolling Stones, Star Beast, Between Planets, During the Summer, and Glory Road. That'll get you started. Well, it was only 6 books, and I was in love, so I read them. And yes, then I read the rest of them. Because as it turns out, this Heinlein guy did have something going for him. His stories were fun. We tend to discount fun as if it somehow lessens what we're doing, instead of being one of the most important things in life. Now, I mentioned that Steve and I wrote together. We wrote together for more than 40 years, over 100 published works, because it was fun. And there we are writing and having fun, and in 2003 we were invited to Balticon to be writers' guest of honor. And that was fun too. A couple of years later we came back to help Balticon celebrate its 50th anniversary. And now here we are at Balticon 59. I want to thank Balticon because my life would have been much different without it. Thank you also to the Heinlein Board for choosing to honor the universe that Steve and I built together. And thank all of you for listening and for reading and for having fun. Have a good time.